Hey folks, it's Ryan here from Lewis Tours Videos, and this week I was just kind of thinking about, there are a few, there are a few essential things about traveling that you need to know, or that you should keep in mind as you go new places, experience new things, and and there are tons of other little things you could add in, but I've come up with 5 plus 1 bonus thing that I just thought of. So I guess technically 6 things that just to keep in mind as you start to travel, and especially as you start to expand to new places internationally, or even just within your own country. Because there are some things, in my opinion, that I feel like you should just keep in mind. And from my experience, just from my experience, these are some of the essential things that you should that you need to know if you're going to make the best out of any trip you're on. I've made a list of 6 of them. Like I said, I originally had 5, but I came up with another one. To me there are about 5 or 6 essential things that I think everybody should keep in mind as they travel. And I'm only 13, so I don't know everything, but these are kind of some of the things that I feel like I personally am always keeping in mind as I start to go new places. Now, the first thing that I would definitely recommend for anybody that's, and this isn't necessarily available or the most convenient in all cases, but in most cases it is to go your own way sometimes. Now, there will be signs, especially if you're on a cruise or something like that, there'll be signs say, tours this way, go on a tour of the island or whatever. But see, the thing is, if you really want to get the full experience, you need to pick and choose, like, what you want to. And, obviously, maybe that doesn't work well for everybody, but I found that for whenever I'm traveling, with my family, that we've found it to be absolutely awesome, and I think we've actually gotten more out of it because we've gone our own way. Like, for example, and it doesn't have to be exactly like this, but almost like resisting peer pressure a bit. Like somebody says, you could pay money to go on this tour, or you could do your own thing. You could make your own tour and, pick out the places you say, oh, that sounds interesting. That way you can spend as much time as you want there. Like for example, when we were up in Alaska last summer, they had tons of tours of, like, Skagway, Alaska or whatever, and, you can drive up this way a little bit. See, the thing that we did, they would drive up maybe a little ways and then turn back around, but... So, see, the thing that we did was we rented a car, because they had a rent-a-car place in Skagway. So we actually rented a car, and we drove up through Skagway, and, into British Columbia, and then into the Yukon Territory. Beautiful drive, probably one of the best drive that I have ever been on. So it was awesome. So it just goes to show that when you go your own way, it really tends to actually work out better for you. And, maybe not for all people, especially maybe if you have, like, smaller children or something like that. But I found a lot of the time that if everybody in your party is, of the age that they can move around okay and everything, and they can kind of fend for themselves in a sense, then I would definitely recommend, like, do your own thing, pick and choose your adventure, because, it doesn't matter what the tour book says. If you see something, you say, wow, that sounds interesting. It's all based on personal opinions. If you think something sounds interesting, it could be different from something in the tour book. So that's the thing that that's one of the things that I would definitely recommend if you're going on a trip, because, like, I've found that it just makes such a difference, and a lot of times you can get so much more out of your trip if you kind of go your own way and, choose your own adventure and just kind of piece together a route, and I found sometimes that's actually the best way to go. Now, the second thing that I would recommend is to plan your days, out, plan your days out pretty well, but also be open to change. Now, generally what we do, or what I do when I'm going out places with my family on vacation is, we have like a rough idea. We say, for example, like when we were in Vancouver before our Alaska trip, we say, okay, well, we're going to go to Stanley Park today. Now, that's our biggest plan for that day. Now, just because, but the thing is, so you want to have an in general plan like that, but another thing is that you don't need to stick to that exact plan. You don't need to say, no, we're going to stick around here all day. If that's all you're planning to do, and I would just recommend making more of an in general plan, like, okay, this is where we're going to mostly focus on today, then that gives you more options to change your plans a little bit. Like, maybe like in our example, it would be like, okay, well, we're going to Stanley Park. But see, the thing is that the other half of our group wants to go back to the hotel because they're getting tired. We can do that, because we're able to kind of edit our schedule a bit, while my mom and dad and I, we go off somewhere else, we explore the park some more, the rest of our group can go back to the hotel or just do whatever they want, really. And so you want to have like a rough idea of what you're doing, so have some ideas of what you want to do that day too, like say, okay, well, I think it would be nice if we could hit this spot, I think it would be really cool if we could see this today or that, but don't plan every single minute of everything, because then you don't have enough you don't have enough space in your schedule to adjust. And just adjusting your schedule is one of the most important things that that you should be able to do on your trip, because it's because if something comes up, or if somebody's just not feeling it, or if somebody's just not feeling like going somewhere, then you want to be able to kind of adjust your plans a bit accordingly. But you also, like I said, you also want to have somewhat of an idea of where you're going. You don't want to just go wandering around aimlessly. So plan, but be open to change, is basically what I'm saying. Now, the third thing that you're going to want to do and keep in mind on your trips is that if you're in a bad situation, make the best of it. I mean, laugh about it, if you kind of know what I mean by that. There can be, obviously if your trip gets screwed up colossally, if something goes tragically wrong, that's another, that's one thing. But if it's just some little fluke, in your trip or something, and it's something that's not life-threatening, it's not something like someone gets sick or anything like that, just kind of laugh it off. I mean, you're going to have issues with your plans. Your trip is going to go wrong somewhere. You can't have a perfect trip. Something is going to get screwed up. But the thing is, you just kind of have to, deal with it and adjust accordingly. And sometimes just kind of laugh it off. I mean, and here I know I already have mentioned Vancouver and Alaska a lot, but once again, when we were out in Vancouver, we were on this whale watch. Now, we did not see any whales. It was the bumpiest boat ride of my entire life, but I think, honestly, that's one of the funniest things on this entire trip, because just how everybody on the boat was just like, oh, and there were people getting nauseous, and the funny thing is that we didn't even see a single whale. But the thing is that that's the type of thing that you just have to be able to laugh it off and say, you know what, that was still a fun experience. That's still something I'm going to remember. And to be honest, some of those things are actually the things that you remember the most on your trips. Because you remember that it went wrong, but something went wrong, but it's still memorable. It's still fun, and even if it doesn't seem fun or memorable at the time, it's kind of one of those things that when the memory really sinks into your mind, you start to realize, what, that was actually kind of fun, or, that was kind of funny the way that turned out. So just, don't get too upset if something little goes wrong with your plans, because it's bound to happen, and things like that they're going to happen at some point during your trip. So you just have to be able to, adjust if, something gets canceled or something like that. And if it's just something like I said, like with the whale watch, you just have to be able to laugh it off and, enjoy it, enjoy it to the fullest, even if it's not the exact thing that you planned. Now, number 4 is something that I'm actually a really big advocate of, And just because I've had so many great experiences doing this. Number 4 is that I feel like is so true with my trips, and I feel like should be true with a lot of trips too, is to go places that you wouldn't expect to go, because sometimes those actually end up being the most fun experiences of the trips, because just especially, and when I say places that you wouldn't expect to go, not only do I mean maybe take a little detour and explore a little town or something, or explore some little historical site that you didn't know was there. Not only do I mean that, but I'm talking about too, like the roadside attractions, things like that. And going back to once again examples from my past trips, when I went out to Nebraska last November. One of the big things that we actually were kind of focusing on were a lot of the little roadside attractions on the way out there. We went so many miles out of the way to see these things. It's ridiculous, but honestly, I think that trip goes down in history as one of my favorites, just because that's why you take these big detours to see these roadside attractions that you wouldn't expect to normally go to. Most people wouldn't plan them normally into their trip, but that actually oftentimes actually ends up being the most fun part of the trip. When you add those things in there, it's just you really find it to be more enjoyable. And like one of the things, like some of the things that we saw on the way out there, we went to the highest point in Iowa. Out of that we got, it may have been a longer detour, but it was also really a nice drive through some, through the countryside in Iowa and Minnesota, South Dakota, that whole area. Plus, another check off another high point on our list. And not saying you have to go, like 6 hours out of the way to see something, but even if it's just a little ways out of the way, it's still worth it in a lot of cases, I feel like. And, like another thing we saw, like the world's largest truck stop, we stopped there. I feel like I am richer for having seen that. Because it's cool to see some of these things. Even if it is a bit hokey or or dumb to some people, when you really stop there and some of these things, it's almost like the reason that they're enjoyable is because they're so hokey. Like Iowa's largest frying pan, we got out of the car, we were just laughing our heads off, and but the funny thing is that that's actually one of the things that I remember the most. Just those little stops along the way that you wouldn't normally plan into your trip, and along with some of these roadside attractions too, which whenever you see a roadside attraction, definitely stop. I mean, you don't have to stop at everyone, but if you see something that you're like, oh, okay, that seems kind of cool, like basically anything starting with the world's largest or world's smallest, or Iowa's largest or Michigan's largest or whatever, anything largest or smallest, take the exit, get off, and that is if you have some time to spare. If you're working on a tight schedule, that might not work quite as well. But if you have some time to spare, I would definitely recommend getting off the exit and exploring some of these places. And along with these roadside attractions, you get to see some of the like the towns nearby. You get to see just a whole different part of that state that you wouldn't normally expect to go. Because, if you're going through Iowa, normally people just go straight down I-80. But if you actually go north or south a little bit, you get to see some of these towns that normally, not a lot of people pass through. And I think, honestly, that was one of the most enjoyable parts of that entire trip. So, and, that's not one of those things that necessarily all people are into, but if you like stopping... If you like having a little bit of an adventure, I would definitely recommend checking out some of those roadside attractions and going some places that you wouldn't normally plan into your trip and just kind of winging it in some cases. If you see somewhere that you want to go and you have enough time for it, say, let's get off. So that I found, for me, that's been one of the most enjoyable parts of my trips, and I would recommend it for anybody who's traveling, especially within the U.S. Now, the fifth thing that I would recommend for anybody traveling to, and this especially really works with new countries, new continents, even like a new state, is if you see somebody around there that seems like if they talk to you or they say hey, hi, or whatever, say hi to them and interact with people, and especially if they start to kind of get into a conversation. And so basically my main point here is to interact. If you're in a new place that you've never really been before, interact with the locals, say hi, tell them where you're from, and, maybe ask them for a few suggestions around the local area, because we've actually gotten quite a few really great suggestions from people who are like local, that like they live in the area that we're passing through, and so it's actually that's really been very helpful for us along the way, and in ways that sometimes I don't even realize it until I really think about it. Like, oh yeah, the only reason we stopped there was because someone told us about it. So and I think you'll find, and even though it's not true all places, for really anybody that will say hi to you, or even just if they start small talk a little bit with you, really anywhere you go, I think they'll be more than willing to answer a few questions that you may have about the area, or just have a short little conversation. You don't need to have a huge lecture or anything, but you just have a short little conversation with them, and be friendly, and almost like you're like an ambassador to that, from your home state or area or wherever you're from. And I think 80 to 90% of the time, probably, that like whoever you're talking to, they'd be more than willing to give you some recommendations for the area. Like I said, some of our best stops have actually come from things that people have told us, and it's I've found it very helpful along the way. And see, just definitely, I'm kind of at a loss for words here. I don't even know how to really describe it, but it's just, it's been so helpful, just that, it's, I would definitely recommend talking to someone from the local area, and just ask them about things, or just, be friendly with them, because I think, honestly, most of the time, anybody who you talk to would be more than willing to talk back to you and just have a nice conversation. Like when my dad and I were out in Nebraska, everybody was so, and part of the reason we actually went out there was because we've heard, everybody out in Lincoln, because we were going for a football game, everybody out in Lincoln is so nice, they're just absolutely wonderful. Boy, were they. Oh my gosh, we talked to several people that were like, hey, thanks for coming out or whatever, and I'm like, well, you're welcome, but geez, and there was this one dude that invited my dad to go, hunting with him. I'm like, dude, we're from Michigan. You're out here in Nebraska, and you're, inviting us to go hunting with you. So, obviously not every time. It's not going to be like that every time, but, just things like that. You'll find that I think you'll actually, a lot of people can actually connect with people that live there more than you'd actually expect to be able to. And that's one thing that I feel like is essential to a lot of trips, just to get, if you're traveling to a new spot, that's kind of essential for your international travel, just to get to know some of the people around there. Because I think you'll find it makes a really big difference. Now, number 6 is something that I've actually kind of been, just kind of, I wouldn't say struggling with, but kind of debating with myself, over the years, about how much along my trip should I record and how much should I just experience it. Now, there was a period of about 2 to 3 years ago or so that I was recording everything. Like, okay, I have to take a video of this. I have to take a picture of this. And I've actually found that sometimes I don't really take in the experience if I do that. So I think it's really essential to any good trip that you're, I know there's some people that barely take any pictures, and I think, that's great. But if personally for me, if you're the type of person that likes to document things, likes to take videos or pictures or whatever, I would say, and this is just a personal recommendation from me, because I've thought about this a lot, and I've really been, I think I found the nice combination of how long I spend recording things and experiencing things, but try to find that good blend where you can still record things and you can still vlog things or do whatever, so that it's sufficiently documented and your memories are safe, and you can remember it really well. Because I know I like taking a lot of videos, but also be sure to set aside lots of time too for just experiencing things. Because like me at Disney World, I'll record a ride or something, but the thing is, I'm not going to record that ride every time because then I'll never actually experience it. So I need to So the thing is, if you're someone who likes to take videos, honestly, that's great. I'm totally with you. But just from a vlogger to a vlogger, I would recommend, just take, setting aside a little bit of time just to experience whatever your destination is. Especially if it's somewhere that you were planning on going. If this was a planned stop, set aside some time to just experience it too. But also be sure to catch it on video, because I love that stuff too. But I guess what I'm saying is just to get try to find that perfect balance of experiencing and documenting. And it might take a little bit to find it, but like it did with me. But just it might take some trial and error, but you'll find it eventually. Well, I suppose my last little bit of advice for you is for just traveling in general, and this mostly has to do with like car rides or for flights, is no matter who you're traveling with, as long as they're not evil or something, which, I imagine you're not traveling with an evil person, but no matter who you're traveling with, just try to make it such a fun experience, no matter what the circumstances are. When you're in transit between places, be sure to, bring something to do, or and sometimes that's actually a good time to really talk and, get to know the people you're traveling with more, even if you've known them for your entire life, just to spend some really good quality time with them. I do that, as far as like with my family all the time. And when we went out to Nebraska, it was my dad and my dad and I, and then my dad's friend, my dad's friend's friend. But anyway, so we all had a really good time. But see, the thing is, we were in the car for so long that we really got to talk and just kind of laugh together. And so no matter what the circumstances are, there's some benefit that comes out of, there's some sort of benefit that comes out of just, spending some nice quality time with a good group of people in the car or on a flight or something. They'll really keep you entertained. I mean, no matter who you're with, or I'm probably almost anybody that you would possibly travel with, they'll keep you entertained, and it's a really good opportunity to talk to people and just laugh about stuff and just have a really good time. That's one thing that I've always enjoyed on all of my trips. So I hope you'll find the same on yours too, that it's a very enjoyable part of the trip. Well, folks, those are Ryan Lewis's 7 tips for more successful trips, and or at least, hopefully more enjoyable trips. And I really do hope that you enjoyed this video, and that you'll consider putting some of these tips into action. I know that I have in the past, and I've had awesome trips. And maybe that's just how I run my trips, but I really do hope that those will help you on your trips in the future, because they've definitely helped me. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And it's very much appreciated. And be sure to let me know if you enjoyed the video, so that I can keep making more of these in the future. So I hope you enjoyed, and safe travels to wherever your next destination may be.